the aforementioned Vivek Ramaswamy, kind enough to join us right now. Vivek, always good to see you. How you doing?
Doing well, Neil. How are you?
Very good. Let me ask you a little bit. I was touching on this with Bob Cusack, that this is not the first time, but you've been critical of Governor Kim Reynolds in Iowa. She's very, very popular. You've also been critical of Governor Chris Sununu in New Hampshire. He, too, very popular. We called him the face of the establishment. And I'm just wondering, doesn't that hurt you? How is that helping you?
Well, I want to be really clear. I've actually been very complimentary of Governor Reynolds, but there is one key issue that does matter to a lot of Iowans, Neil, that not a single Republican candidate has had the guts to speak for except for me, and not a single even member of the Iowa establishment has spoken about, which is the carbon dioxide capture pipeline. They're building pipelines capturing CO2 across farmers' land, now potentially using eminent domain to even run that pipeline across land that Iowa farmers don't want to allow across their land. People I'm meeting across the state are livid about this, Neil. This is a major issue for the grassroots. I'm the only candidate daring to even touch it. And so I'm not one of these people that believes that just somebody's automatically 100% correct or 100% wrong on everything. I've praised Kim Reynolds plenty for education policy, for school choice and otherwise, but she's wrong to hide from this issue. And the Iowa grassroots understand that. And I think because I'm speaking to many of those issues that other candidates are not, I think that's going to be a major sign of a surprise coming in that Iowa caucus.
Well, you got a surprising and a very strong response from many Iowans, some farmers who were unaware of this. I certainly was unaware of this, but I'm just wondering then how that plays out. Is this going to be your focus then for these remaining, 50-odd days before the caucuses?
It's certainly one of the issues that I'm focused on. It's important to many Iowans here. Standing up to the global climate religion has been one of my core issues even long before I ran for president. So this is near and dear to my heart. But Neil, I think more broadly, my brand here with the Iowan grassroots is what I started this campaign with. Speak the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Speak the truth, not just to the Democrats on the other side, but to our own failures in our own Republican Party right here at home. And one of the things we're seeing on the ground, Neil, is that many of the people coming to our events, supporting me, and I think this is unique to my candidacy, have never participated in a caucus before. Many of them are young. So if they turn out for the caucus, as they're signaling to us they will, at a large scale, I think we're going to deliver a major surprise on January 15th, shatter the expectations that have been set. And I'm doing about 200 events between mid-November and the Iowa caucus. It's like the full Grassley almost times 2. So I think Iowans do reward the bottom-up grassroots effort that candidates put in. And, believe me, I'm doing more events than anybody else here by far.
But I just wonder, I understand your strategy, and I respect that, but the only guy I know who has criticized Governor Reynolds, not necessarily similar to yours, is Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has been also critical of New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, and you are much more critical of him, as I said, calling him the face of the establishment. So explain your beef with Sununu, who is apparently ready to announce he's supporting somebody. It's not going to be you, clearly. It's not going to be Donald Trump. So what happened?
Again, it's based on policy. At the end of the day, I've praised him for at least paying attention to the northern border. But you take something like the parental rights bill, which basically has said that parents have the right to know if their kid shows up in school and identifies as a gender different than their biological sex. I think it's shameful that when that bill was served up to Sununu, once he declined to sign it, this time around when it was making its way through the legislature, he did nothing to advance it. I think that's shameful in a Republican state.
So this had nothing to do, Vivek. I think he called you a smart, but he called you a smart aleck. You were obnoxious and all. So did that play into this, or that this is more than just an issue? It's personal. You didn't like what he said about you.
Well, look, I don't like a lot of what he says about the future of this country. We have a fundamental ideological divide in the GOP, Neil, and that's what we have to confront. I'm not one of these people that says, okay, well, if you criticize Kim Reynolds on one issue, she's automatically a bad person. I reject that. That's not good for our politics. But what I do is I speak freely. The political consultants, the mega donor class, the establishment in the Republican Party tells other candidates there are certain things they can't say. You know what? They tell me that too. I'm just the one who doesn't listen.
Do you think
I'm not
sometimes,
beholden to the
though,
establishment
with the
and
best of
GOP,
intentions,
you got to go directly to the
do you
people.
feel that sometimes you go too far, that you do get obnoxious, that you do get a little arrogant, that you do get a little dismissive, and it's hurting you, it's hurting your brand or whatever?
So, Neil, I'm not in this to play some political game of snakes and ladders. My approach to this is speak my convictions, speak them without apology. The bet I'm making is that that will ultimately be the successful strategy. But
So
even if it's
sometimes
not,
do you ever
I'll be
feel
frank,
you overdo
I'd rather
it?
lose
Do you
some
think you
election
sometimes
than
overdo
to-
that?
No, is the
Okay.
answer to that question. Now, do I evolve my thoughts in my journey as an entrepreneur and now as somebody who's been a politician for a year? Of course, you learn from your experiences and always keep an open mind. But I will never back off of speaking my convictions.
Okay.
In fact, I think part of the problem with the Republican Party anymore, Neil, is it's become a party that the establishment effectively co-opts politicians as their puppets. I say let's disagree openly. I always do it in a civil way. I don't call people names, unlike some of the others on that debate stage. I don't use four-letter words to refer to my fellow candidates.
It's not always civil, right?
I speak the truth. I do it in a civil way.
But it's not always civil. But I say this in the context of Brian Swenson, a top political aide of yours, who left to join the Donald Trump campaign. I was intrigued by Tricia McLaughlin, your communications director, saying of that move, we love Brian. It's a good move for Brian, and we're happy for him. Why is it a good move for one of your key aides to go to Donald Trump? Why would she say that?
I mean, we have 45 people on our staff. We did bring in someone. He was stationed in New Hampshire. We brought in Mike Biondo, who ran the national campaign for Santorum in this late phase of the race to run New Hampshire. So at that point, we thank somebody who served us for the part of the campaign he got us to. I like the guy, wish him well. We have a great relationship.
Yeah.
But we've brought in the team that actually got Santorum. The guy who's running Iowa for us now to the end is the guy who won it for Santorum and for Cruz. That's Matt Schultz. And also now we got Mike Biondo, who did the Santorum national campaign, leading New Hampshire for us.
But
So one of the things I've learned is you evolve your team,
I understand,
and that's where we actually go.
you said you're happy for him. And if I had a key person, and I know you have many key people, and they leave to go to Donald Trump's campaign.
I want to be respectful of the individuals.
Okay.
I want to be respectful of the individuals involved and not really throw anybody. I wish everybody who's worked with us well in their future career, and so I want to be respectful of those people, Neil. But what I'll tell you is we have exactly the team that we want here, and the decisions we've made and who we've put in charge of which states is intentional. We have people who have won at this before, but the operation's in great shape. Now it's up to me to talk to the Iowa grassroots. We're doing that at a scale that I think other candidates aren't.
Okay.
Bringing new people into this caucus. And you know what? I think it's going to be the successful strategy, but January 15th is not far around the corner. And I'd say get ready for a major surprise.
All right, we'll watch that. But in the meantime, if it doesn't work out the way you want and you don't get the nomination, would you support anyone else becoming the nominee? Would you support Donald Trump? It seems you would. Would you support Chris Christie or Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis?
As I expect from him.
Okay, but what about the others? What about the others I mentioned, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis? Would you support them?
I think there are two candidates who are relevant in this race. That's Donald Trump and myself. There's two America First candidates, period. Now, if I get the nomination, I expect Trump's support, and he'll have my support if he's the nominee.
But it sounds to me
but
like you would only support. No,
in this
I want to be clear
go to the
because
next level.
I don't understand because I've heard you on this position.
I'm not sure I follow your exact question of what you're asking, Neil.
You didn't answer it. It's if they were the nominees, Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, would you support them?
Well, look, I've made a pledge to be on that Republican debate stage just as everybody else on that debate stage did. So I see no reason to rehash what every one of us has said, to be on the debate stage each time. And I take that pledge about as seriously as the other candidates do. So that's what I'll say and leave it at that. But I think I'm the only candidate in this race with fresh legs from the next generation who's reaching young Americans, Neil, at a scale that nobody has done in the Republican Party in a long time. Those people aren't polled, but they can also be big assets in a general election to deliver a kind of victory that Reagan did in 1980. So I'm focused on that destination, not the week-to-week undulations. We're doing this bottom-up, ground-up in Iowa. Take the issues I'm speaking about, take the carbon capture pipeline to the climate change agenda in this country, to my candor in my belief that Ronna McDaniel, the chairwoman of the RNC, should resign. There's a reason why I am the only candidate who's able to actually say these things. It's because, in my case, my biggest donor is me. I don't bow to the establishment. I report to the people of this country. And I think that's something that our founding fathers reminded us of, is doing something we would actually do well to remember today. It's up to the people of this country, not the media, not the donor class, not the Ronna McDaniel or the Republican establishment. I think that's going to work in our favor on the ground.
All right, but fair to say right now, you like Donald Trump, you'd support him. You like yourself, you'd support yourself. Those other guys, forget about it.
That's not what I said, Neil. And this is, I think, part of the issue with our media is people putting words in other people's mouth. I made a pledge
but you're not
to be on that
answering
debate stage.
I know I ask and re-ask, Vivek,
it almost feels to me, Neil, it feels to me like actually we have a debate next week, and then I know there's a lot of people who don't want me on that debate stage, and so to say something contrary to that pledge and have me kicked off, I know that might be a lot of people delighting in that.
But you
that's
accept
not gonna
that
work.
pledge,
that
whoever wins, so I do want to, and thank you for saying it, that pledge calls for supporting whoever the nominee is, right?
We have policy issues to discuss, Neil.
I understand that.
There's plenty of policy issues to discuss.
We're
here talking about horse races
you support
for 15
the
minutes.
pledge like your rivals do.
We should probably talk about the future of this country.
I understand that, but you
I support the
that
pledge in the same way that my rivals do.
Got it.
I support my pledge in the same way the rivals do, as I said before.
All right. Vivek, thank you very, very much on that. Vivek Ramaswamy.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.